Drapetomania is one of the more infamous examples of science being weaponized to justify slavery. This is a moment in Black and American history. This is one of history's mysteries. So let's get into this word drapetomania. Drapetomania, or the disease causing Negroes to run away. The origin: in 1851, Dr. Samuel A. Cartwright, a physician practicing in Louisiana, published a report on the diseases and physical peculiarities of the Negro race in the New Orleans Medical and Surgical Journal. In it, he coined the word drapetomania, from Greek drapetes, runaway slave, and mania, madness, to describe what he claimed was a mental illness that caused enslaved Black people to flee captivity. So this is a story, this is a definite story of Black and American history. And please like, share this story. This is a learning lesson, it's informational, and this is part of all of our history. And so there was a diagnosis for Black Africans in America who did not want to be slaves and wanted to leave. And they came up with a psychiatric diagnosis back in 1851 by this Dr. Samuel A. Cartwright. So here's the logic. Dr. Cartwright argued that slavery was the nature and proper condition for Black people, and that the desire to escape it was therefore a pathology. I'm going to repeat it again. He argued that slavery was the natural and proper condition for Black people, and that the desire to escape slavery, was therefore a pathology. Something had to be wrong with these Africans that did not want to be chained and treated like an animal. So they're saying it was not a rational response to bondage, violence, and forced labor. He framed obedience as health and the wish for freedom as a disease. Here, say it again. Dr. Cartwright framed obedience as health and the wish for freedom as a disease. So what was Dr. Cartwright's cure? Dr. Cartwright's prescribed treatments were essentially tools of control and abuse. He suggested that enslavers who noticed early warning signs like sullenness or discontent by the slaves, the enslavers should whip the disease out of the slave before it progressed to an actual flight, meaning that the slave wanted to leave the plantation, and that keeping enslaved people submissive and in their place was both a preventive and curative measure. So why did it matter at this time? This wasn't a fringe idea. It was published in a respected medical journal and cited by pro-slavery advocates as scientific validation for the institution of slavery. It's part of a broader body of the 19th century pseudoscience, along with claims about supposed differences in Black people versus white, like in lung capacity and bone structure, and that tried to dress up racial hierarchy in the language of medicine, that whites were more superior than people of color. So the controversy and the legacy of drapetomania is now universally regarded by historians and medical ethicists as a textbook case of medicine being corrupted by political and economic interests, or they were being corrupted to serve political and economic interests. Literally, pathologicalizing the pursuit of liberty. It's frequently cited in discussions of scientific racism, the history of psychiatry's misuse, and how objective science can be shaped by the biases of the era producing it. It's also referred in debates about how mental illness diagnoses have historically been used as instruments of social control more broadly, and not just regarding race. So drapetomania was a mental illness proposed in 1851 that claimed all runaway slaves were mentally ill. Dr. Samuel Cartwright was a physician who claimed that only an insane slave would flee from his masters. Really? As the conditions of slavery were more favorable in comparison to the lives of free Africans, Dr. Cartwright claimed that ultimately slaves were treated well, fed appropriately, and kept safe and healthy. He also claimed that African individuals were supposed to be naturally easy to satisfy and control. He stated that any slave that went against this supposed easy-going, submissive nature could be cured of the illness by or via whipping the devil out of them. This is scientific racism at its best and its worst. So there was a real medical psychiatric diagnosis for a human being, an African human being that did not want to be enslaved by anybody or treated like an animal back in the 1800s. And this Dr. Samuel Cartwright came up with the term Drapetomania, which is one of the more infamous examples of how science was being weaponized to justify slavery. Tell me what you think about this history's mystery about Black and America's tortured, negative, stained history during slavery. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.